Hello, it's early June. Let's have a look at what's grown in the garden. So the first thing you'll notice is that there's a giant pile of straw here. And the second thing you may notice is that there's a lot of weeds. This has been the busiest time of year, and I actually strained my back lifting a far too heavy container of potting soil recently. So I've kind of been doing the bare minimum of what I need to do to get everything in the ground. So a lot of the cosmetic stuff has fallen by the wayside. And in case you're wondering, I'm doing much better. Almost back to normal. So, anywho, here's some lovely lettuce. This is the lettuce bed and the greens bed that is right next to our tomatoes. So you can see we have, let me think here, 9 different types of tomatoes and growing in 2 different places. So each one of these is an individual unique variety. And then I've got another trellis on the other side of the garden with all the other ones. Here, let me get the zoom out. Yeah, that's better. So you can see I transplanted them a couple weeks ago and they're doing really well. I've been snipping up the bottom leaves as they grow taller to keep the blight at bay this year. But overall, they're looking really healthy. Just a little presence of thistles hanging out with them. Here's Swiss chard planted in the end of this bed. Again, it looks pretty weedy and messy, but in about a month, this will just be lush with chard. This is kind of a messy time of the garden in general. And everything's small and the weeds are big. Here's a pot of sweet potatoes. This is how I like to grow them, or a tub of sweet potatoes. You can see that I need to weed whack along the garden fence, and then all of these will go away. This is how I like to plant them. I do 5 in a tub of this size. And I've actually got an experiment running. Of course, it's me with my experiments. I've got an experiment running this year where I have 3 of these tubs. 1, and then over there you can see 2, 3. 2 of the 3 are almost entirely compost, mostly chicken manure compost with just a layer of soil on top, and 1 is full of just soil. And so I'm curious to see how they grow in those conditions. Last year I kind of planted them in sort of a different setup, just tubs full of mostly composted sod. So anyway, I'm curious to see how they do with the chicken compost. I'm hoping they'll do well. So far, they look good. Anywho, beans. You may remember last year, if you watched my videos, that I had a nice bean tunnel, and this year we'll have the same, but I practice crop rotation, so they're in a different place. So by the midsummer, this hopefully, if everything goes well, should just be full of beans. But you can see that they're just getting started. I planted this row a little earlier, that's why they're bigger, and the rest I planted at about the same time. They're coming up real good. I need to thin them, but other than that, I'm really pleased. About this half of them, this half is fresh beans, and then the other half will be dry beans of different varieties. If anybody's curious about varieties, my favorite fresh bean is Rattlesnake. I think it looks really cool and it tastes delicious. I've also had plenty of success with Kentucky Wonder, and that's what these are. That's a very standard heirloom type. And I can talk more in later videos about the dry beans because they'll be coming in all season. Oh no, look at this. This one's looking a little unhealthy. There might be things munching on them. We'll have to see how that goes. I can always reseed. Every once in a while you get like 1 or 2 bean beetles, and it's amazing how much destruction they can cause. Anyway, peas. So these are my peas. I'm growing a few more than I was previously last year in a new trellis setup, which is going okay. I previously had them in a chicken wire trellis, and that worked a little bit better. It's a little bit tighter weave, whereas this is bigger spaces between. And peas, unlike beans, when they grow to trellis up, they spiral. And they do just fine on a big trellis like this, the way they spiral. Peas, on the other hand, grow straight up, and then they send out these little fingery bits, if you can see them in the camera, and those grab onto stuff. You can kind of see like this one here. Oh, the shade is hard. Yeah, here we go. You can see they reach out and they grab onto things. Anywho, if you get them anywhere near, like even a couple inches away from the trellis, they'll reach out and they won't be able to grab it. So you kind of have to help them, like I'm doing with this one right now. Kind of have to help them grab on, and it's sort of successful. Anyway, they are starting to flower. Oh, here, this one's almost ready. Wow, they're coming along faster than I realized. That's a pea. This is a new variety this year. This variety that's flowering so much right on the end, it's called Amish, and it's Amish Snap maybe. It's from Seed Savers Exchange. I'm growing a bunch of Seed Saver Exchange seeds this year for the first time. So far, so good. And then I have just regular old Sugar Snap in the middle. There's an old reliable one for me from Nature and Nurture Seeds here in Ann Arbor. And then on the end I have, what is it? It's an English name for shelling peas in the end. And this is the first time I'm really growing a bunch of shelling peas in earnest. So, and you can see they're kind of fallen totally off the trellis, and I don't love it, but I'm not sure what to do about it. So we'll see how they fare. They're kind of falling right over onto this row of mountain spinach or auroch. This is one of my favorite, lesser known greens. It looks so beautiful after it rains. I don't know if you can kind of see it just like nestles in with water. Look at that. It's like a jewel. It tastes really good, really neutral, kind of spinachy, and it grows really well. It takes forever to bolt compared to all your other lettuces and spinaches and stuff. They just say don't eat too much of it because it has a fair amount of oxalic acid, however you say that, in it. So you just don't like eat, a giant salad of it every day. But other than that, this one's really great. I really like that one. Anyway, let's move right along. So this is garlic. The garlic in this bed is a little bit slower than the garlic that I have elsewhere, so I'll show you the scapes on those ones. These ones haven't quite started putting up scapes, but they're really close. Along my pea bed, all along the edge here, is carrots, and I've planted them in 3 successive plantings, so here you can't even see them. It just looks like a thistle bed, but I promise there are carrots in there. And then you can see more and more carrots, and here was my first planting, and they're doing really well. You can see this is a nice carrot top. Oh, what's this? Is this? So you get some pretty cool caterpillars that like carrots. This might be a swallowtail. I'm not sure. Anyway, I shouldn't enjoy them. They eat my carrots, but they're very pretty. This looks like a mess, but it actually is a leek bed. Leek looks so thin and small, it's hard to distinguish them from weeds. These are leeks, baby leeks. They'll be huge by the end of the season. You plant them in the spring and then you don't harvest them until almost winter. So it'll take this bed a while to fill in, and I'll just keep pulling these thistles slowly as my back allows, and eventually we'll have a lot of leeks there. This is a mess. This is where the hoop tunnel was, if you followed that experiment. And I planted some broccoli. It didn't do so well. It was too stressed. It was too cold. It went to seed. It basically went to seed. It's still there, but it doesn't look good. Pretty much so we had some really good heads of lettuce here. I've harvested almost all of them. But the other success there was, the spinach was good. You can see this is spinach, and it looks really nice. That's a nice head of spinach that we've been eating from. And the kale has done really well. So this is a nice, really good, really, really well-grown head of kale. This is a really nice head of kale that I need to harvest from. Look at this big guy. Oh, it's wonderful. So much food. This is Vates. It's one of my favorite types of kale. Okay, moving right along. I just planted these today. You'll see a bunch of these throughout the garden. This is my summer squash. We have a patty pan and a zucchini. Those are the 2 types I really like. And so what these are is just window screen material. You fold it into a bit of a tent shape. I just staple it together. You can kind of see where the staples are on there. And I hold it down with bricks and a landscape staple on the one side. And I grow so I got this from Elliot Coleman. So if you want to read more about it, his book, The New Organic Grower, which is a great read. This is where I got this idea, and he has more instructions in there on it. Essentially, you just grow all your cucurbits, if that's how you say. I don't know how you say it right. So all your cucumbers, your squash, your melon, in these. You plant them there, you seed them, you cover them immediately with the cover, and then you leave it on until the leaves are pressing up against the inside, so it's that big. And what that does is it protects it from squash bugs and cucumber beetles, and it works. Last year, so the first year I gardened, I got like no good cucurbit plants because the bugs were so bad. They're so bad around here. The second year I did this, and as soon as I took the cover off, I sprayed them with neem, and I did that like once a week for just a couple weeks afterwards, and I got a beautiful harvest of everything. Eventually, because last year was a monsoon summer, the mildew took most of my cucurbits after a while, but the beetles were not a problem. So if you struggle with that, this is the best organic method I have found. It's really good. So this is what I usually do anyway. I plant my summer squash in the radish bed because the radishes are harvested almost exactly at the time that you want to get these in the ground. So it works really well to save space. You can see my radishes are coming in here. This is the last planting, which actually did well. My first 2 plantings of radishes did really poorly this year because it was such a cold spring. Even radishes couldn't do well. And radishes like cold, so if that says anything about the spring. Anyway, here's my asparagus bed. You can see they're trees. I mean, they are literally insane. Like, if you see compared to me, like, look how much taller that is than me. Isn't that crazy? They're looking really good. We got like a 2-week harvest out of these guys this spring. And that's because they are on their 2nd year. Or wait, am I counting that right? Yes, and then, yes, this is their 2nd year. And then their 3rd year, I will be able to get normal harvest out of them. So like 4 to 6 weeks worth of asparagus, which is going to be a lot, I hope, if it goes well. But this year we got a good 2-week harvest and they tasted great and we were really pleased. And now they're these enormous frondy trees. And I think I'm going to have to support them because if we get a windy day, these are going to just go everywhere. Anyway, and right next to them, getting a little bit of shade from them, which works out really well, is my celery. Celery likes it cool, so when it gets really hot, having this shade from the asparagus will be really nice for it. This is the weediest area. I almost feel embarrassed to share this with everyone because I just haven't had time to take care of it. This is where my winter squash is. So these are mega sized screen covers over hills of 5 different types of winter squash. I just planted those a couple days ago. Along here in the back, I have another new thing for the year. This is hibiscus. These grow if they go well, and I don't know, I'm not sure how they'll do. They haven't grown a ton since I planted them, but they don't look unhealthy either, so we'll see. These apparently grow into just big bushes, and then they produce the hibiscus flowers that you can make tea out of that I really like, or jams or things. So just an experiment, we'll see. You can see the grapes are doing well. I installed these grape trellises this year because they seem to survive the winter. I said I wasn't going to trellis them until I saw if they survived. So I have, these are different types, red and white table grapes, seedless table grapes. I won't be able to harvest still for several years. It takes a long time for grapes to get established. So it's a real investment. But you can see that they're coming back. This is Cannabis is the type, and it's a red variety, and it's doing really well. The bird pooped on it. Rude. So let's see what else. The raspberries are getting absolutely out of control, insane. I put this trellis in here and I feel like a doofus because it's not even doing anything. They're so crazy. I don't know what I'm going to do with these. I'm supposed to cover them with bird netting so the birds don't eat all of them. And I was going to drape it over this trellis, but I don't know. We'll see. It's kind of a mess right now. I have 3 different types, and you can see that this variety is the first fruiting, and they sort of have it goes early to late in terms of when they fruit. So this will be the first, and the middle one, and then the last one is the golden variety at the end there. So we will see. But the early variety, which I believe is called Boyne, is already starting to flower up a little bit. You can see that if it will focus. I guess it won't. Sorry. See if I can make it focus. Nope. Well, anyway, you can see there's lots of berries getting produced in there. Oh, hi, bee. Much more exciting are my strawberries. We are like 2 days away from our first harvest, and I am so excited. Have a look at these beauties. Oh my goodness, is that not so exciting? I'm so excited to see how these taste. This variety is called Early Glow, and it's supposed to be one of the best tasting strawberry varieties, so we'll see. And then this variety is Jewel. This one's my early variety, and this one's my later variety, and you can see that comparatively, these are not quite as far along. They're just coming along slower, which is fine because that means we'll have a longer strawberry harvest. And I'll put bird netting over this row when they start turning red. The reason that you do that is that the red color attracts birds, and then they'll just wreck your whole harvest, from what I hear. I haven't experienced it, but I've also heard that if you keep them from ever knowing there's berries, it'll be a lot easier than if they know they're there and they're trying to get in. So put this on early just to make sure everything stayed cool. Okay, gosh, this video is getting long. I'm sorry, they're always long. So onion bed, very weedy, needs mulch. We'll be doing that soon. Cauliflower. I started these earlier than usual because I hear that they do better if you can get them in the ground earlier, so they're not getting blasted by the super hot summer sun as much, because they really don't like that. And they're coming along pretty well. This is a tough season for them, part of the year for them, because we have lots of flea beetles in addition to the cabbage worms that usually bother them. So I've been spraying them with BT for the cabbage worms, but there's nothing for the flea beetles. You just got to wait until it gets too warm for them. So anyway, we'll see. I have a couple different varieties. I have the purple variety of cauliflower, a green variety, and then a standard one in here. Peppers. I just planted these ones. These are my insurance policy peppers. This was an onion bed, and the onions failed. That's a long story, and I don't need to tell it here. But I used my insurance policy peppers to fill the space. These are all different varieties of sweet and hot peppers. Hot peppers on this side, and then sweet peppers in different hues along the other side. They'll take a while. We won't get pepper harvest until August sometime. These are watermelon, another cucurbit under their covers. Just planted those. They're not up yet. You can't see any. Parsnips. You can see 2 rows of parsnips. These you plant in the spring, leave them all summer, you leave them all winter, and then the next spring, when there's nothing else to eat, you dig them out of the ground and they taste amazing. Don't eat your parsnips in the fall. They don't taste anything like the parsnips in the spring. They're way better. Pro tip. More onions. These are sweet and red variety. The other ones I showed you are yellow. Here are my garlic that are doing a little bit better, and they are just starting to put out their scapes. You can see these. This is a garlic scape in its early phases. It'll probably be a couple weeks before we cut those off. Maybe a week, we'll see. Favorite way to have them, omelets. They go great in eggs. But yeah, they're looking really beautiful this year. All the garlic in the garden, I'm very proud of this, is grown from garlic that I grew last year. So garlic and the farm at this point is a full circle thing. We grow enough to eat and to reseed for the next year without ever having to buy anything. Here's the melon bed. I have 3 different types of melons in here, and there's not much to see because they're just starting. I've tried to start some seedlings of melons and cucumbers this year inside, and they're well known for being really finicky about being transplanted. They don't like their roots being touched. They don't like being grown in pots. And I did my best. Let's be fair, I didn't try that hard. I did them in soil blocks and I potted them up and I treated them like normal seedlings, and I think it shows. You can see that this one is already flowering, which means it's definitely just bolting like crazy. And you can see some yucky colors on some of the leaves. I'm just going to go through and pull those out because I also planted seeds when I planted these, and I'm just going to let the seeds go, and they'll be much healthier plants than these transplants in here. So that was a failed experiment. Next year, maybe I'll try peat pots or something, or maybe we'll just always grow from seed. We'll see. Here is cabbage. We have 4 green types that I started inside from seedlings, 2 reds, and then I have some babies. So you can see these are very young cabbage, green cabbage here, and then here's a very young purple cabbage getting started. So I'm trying to stagger out my cabbage harvest a bit so I don't always have just a ton of it all at one time coming in, which is how I've done it in previous years. It's hard to, well, it's not hard. I make sauerkraut and stuff, but it'd be nice to have it spread out a little bit more. Anyway, these are shallots, 2 different types. I believe it is, now I'm trying to recall, I think that these are the Dutch reds and these are the French. But either way, 2 different types of shallots. And I'll harvest those at the same time as garlic in the midsummer. And you can kind of see them starting to shallot up here already. Okay, there's the beans we looked at earlier. Here's my other row of tomatoes. These ones edged with onions, which are looking pretty good. Again, I'm going to get in there and keep snipping off those lower branches. This is overwintered parsley. Curly and flat leaf. It tastes really good overwintered too. I've never been a huge parsley fan, but I did think that tasting it this spring after it had been overwintered, it was much less sharply flavored. I thought it was quite good. So if you've never been a huge parsley fan and you're curious to try that, I would recommend it. I'm growing 3 different types of basil this year. This is cinnamon basil, and it's doing better than my Genovese basil, which is kind of looking yellow and sickly. I think it's getting a little bit too much water and it's maybe stress from transplant. So we'll see if it bounces back. It should. My take, in case you're a gardener and this is of interest to you, is that if a plant is looking sick, but its youngest leaves, like these ones, are showing a good color, so there's a nice healthy green, and they're still coming in, then your plant probably was stressed and is going to do just fine. So that's my prediction here. We'll see. This is again, very weedy, but this is an herb bed. So we have dill, and I need to get in here and thin all these little dill babies. And across the way, it's probably hard to see, but there's one. Cilantro is on the other side of this. Oh, look at that tomato. Isn't this looking nice? Really excited. We have a bunch of different types, old heirlooms, a bunch of different cherrying types. You know, when you order tomato seeds in the middle of the winter, it's hard not to go nuts. And then last but not least, here's the row of cucumbers. So you can see these seedlings are still suffering from the same problem too, where they're going to seed very quickly. They've got a bad color on their leaves. I'm going to go and pull all those out because you can see right next to it are the seeds I just planted. That's what that is coming in. So those are growing quickly and just fine. And I'm going to rely on those to be healthier rather than the plant that's bolting. So yep, row of cucumbers, and I'm going to tie them to this trellis as they grow up, just like the tomatoes. I didn't mention that, but it might be of use or of interest if you're a gardener. I found that tomatoes do really well as long as you have just anything to tie them to. People do pretty elaborate tomato cages and tomato towers and things like that. But I've found that one length of fencing is all I need to just tie them to occasionally. And I just use, old rags basically to tie them. And that's all you really need to do. So that's what my plan, and this should be just covered with tomatoes by the end of the summer, hopefully if everything goes well. And this should just be covered with cucumbers by the end of the summer if this goes well. So we'll see how that turns out. And I guess the only thing left to show you is these tubs of sweet potatoes. This one's doing quite well. And this is another herb bed, and they're so small in there. It's some anise and fennel, things like that, and you just can't see them. Here's one more basil. I just recently planted this guy, and a few more sweet potatoes because I couldn't stand killing them, so I filled them in this last little bit of space that I had. So there you go. There's the garden. Early June, lots of things coming in, lots of good salads to be had, lots of hopes for how it'll turn out this year. Thanks for watching.